Buen dia. Hi, welcome. My name is Al Salmon Jr. Welcome to Single Black Man from Des Moines. A little about me: I was a dog handler in the service. I worked in healthcare, retail, and libraries. I've taught Hapkido for over 20 years. I'm currently single and retired from marriage. Now I'm a fledgling writer. From time to time, I'll read some of my pieces, both fiction and nonfiction. Time permitting, I might retell a joke that I've heard. I like to keep these pieces around 10 minutes. This piece is part two today, called Right of Way. It might be a little over 10 minutes. Anyway, I'll post stuff every week, so please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to purchase my works, I have some things at Smashwords, or you can email me at al_simon@hotmail.com, and I can send you a complete list of all my works and prices. If you order from me, it'll be a little cheaper. All transactions are done through PayPal. If you go through Smashwords, you'll have a little bit more flexibility. Okay, let me tell you a story. Again, this is part two of Right of Way. Dolph's Gym was a boutique when compared to other martial arts schools. However, his pedigree and the caliber of students he trained made him among the most respected in the city. His gym was converted from an old firehouse. The loft was his personal residence. The gym could handle 20 comfortably. He counted 50 that came on a regular basis. He had no mortgage, and everything in the gym he owned. He charged $5 a class, and from what he earned, along with his military pension, let me rephrase that. He charged $5 a class, and from what he earned, along with his military pension, he could live frugally yet comfortably. He eschewed competition. Excuse me. To attract students, he put on 2 exhibitions a year, one in the fall and one in the spring. He also charged admission for these, but mainly they were for prospective students. He'd spend 3 months preparing. He choreographed, produced, and directed the enterprise. His upper echelon of students looked forward to these events. Most times they learned additional techniques reserved for black belt students and above. A lot of these involved weapons. With Wheeler gone from the ranks, it fell upon Dolph to appear in some of the routines. It was not a big deal because at 40 he was still in good shape and of course proficient in what he was teaching. He was working with a young black belt named David Dar on a series of techniques that involved a sword. Both would take turns in attacking and disarming the other. This series was among the most dramatic of techniques. It was usually a crowd pleaser, one that elicited screams of fear and oohs and ahs. Dar made a pass at Dolph, using a thrust that just missed the midsection. Dolph had angled his body at the last second and spun past. Dar halted, pirouetted, while drawing the sword overhead to prepare for another lunge. Just as he was about to bring the sword down, Dolph stepped in and knelt under the attack. He ensnared the arms as Dolph had made contact with him. He slowly rose while pulling on the arms until Dar was prostrate on the mat. Using the edge of his foot to the nexus of nerves in the wrist caused Dar to release the sword, and Dolph merely reached down, grabbed the sword, and with an artistic flourish, tucked the blade underneath his arm and spun away. He stood momentarily while contemplating the scenario. The mats were covered with vinyl that would bunch up during the exercise. He had carpeting over the mats, however he used a vinyl sheeting over the mats to preserve the carpet. Exhibition prep began at a high intensity. Sweat was expected, blood not considered but not ruled out. Thus the sheeting that covered roughly 60 square feet. Dolph absent-mindedly pawed at the vinyl with his foot to smooth it out while he was thinking. Other than his furrowed brow, if one didn't know him, you'd never know that his mind was alert now, his brain ferreting out which move, what would appeal to the crowd, could this student perform to the level of the task required. In this case, no microprocessor could keep up with what he was percolating. Finally, his face brightened from a revelation. Attack was all he said. When Dolph was composing, choreographing, when he was in the moment, all eyes in the gym were on him. He had a full class that ranged from white belts up and including some of his black belts. If pressed, most students of the martial arts have conflicting feelings toward their instructor. Most of the time, respect for who the instructor was because of his depth of knowledge. Respect did not mean love, especially unconditional love that some instructors craved. With a few exceptions, all students loved and respected him. It brought a smile to his face when he'd hear someone say, "I could watch him all day." Modesty would curb his facial expression. That didn't mean he didn't derive any pleasure, any satisfaction from hearing praise. He was among the caliber of instructors that didn't need it. He wouldn't deny coming to class under the influence. He was younger then, fresh from the military, cocky to the extent that Wheeler was. Of course, people didn't realize teaching was not strenuous for him. In fact, he took pleasure from it. A basic introductory course that he taught adult ed lasted 6 weeks. He'd be hard-pressed to say if he ever sweated in any of those sessions. However, word spread that Dolph was an addict, that he would smoke an ounce of pot and drink a 12-pack of beer and still give you a hell of a workout. Obviously, this kind of advertising didn't help his reputation. It took years to build up his stable of students. His peers advised him to enter tournaments. It was not his thing. It wasn't that he didn't feel confident in his skills. It was that he wasn't compelled to fight. And since he eschewed competition, exhibitions became his bread and butter. As Dar ki'd with a vengeance, ki is like the attack scream most martial arts use. As Dolph ki'd with a vengeance, and he went running toward an unarmed Dolph with a 26-inch samurai sword cocked overhead and ready to bring it down, no one in the gym felt sorry for Dolph. They were all waiting to see what he'd do. Before, he had ducked under the attack. This time, he melded with Dar, and at the last moment slid adjacent, parried the attack by ignoring the sword and going for Dar's arms. Using the forward motion, Dolph led Dar around his body, becoming airborne as if swept up by a tornado. Only thing he knew was that he was at Dolph's mercy and would land somewhere on the mats with minimum amount of damage. As Dar was whipping around his body, Dolph came to a brief, barely perceivable halt and reversed direction. He had half a step on the flying Dar that gave him time to half kneel and raise a crooked arm up to Dar's chest to his neck, and then being forwarded down to the mats with a resounding thud. Ooze lit the gym, and still all eyes were on Dolph. There he stood, thinking, composing, directing. "Forget that," he said, being disgusted with himself. "Let's go back to the plan." Again, his feet palming at the mats underneath him. There's a final scene in Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. To the unpracticed eyes, it would go unnoticed. However, there's a moment's hesitation between attacks. Long play was what Dolph would call these episodes. Quote, "Don't forget that the audience doesn't know what you're doing. They have no idea that you're used to working with someone else. Your left knee is talking to you today, but all you're thinking about is doing number 7 the way you want, and you'll die a happy man. If you fuck up, improvise. You want to make the moment as seamless as possible. Once you curse or show some disappointment in yourself, that's when you let on to the audience that something is wrong. Unquote. The blown play this time, Dolph was expecting another attack. The routine was segmented into attack and defender situations. With the first attack, the defender is to evade and counterattack on the second assault. Dar had already descended his arms and was thrusting at Dolph when ordinarily Dolph would have neatly tucked under the attack and snared the arms and throw Dar to the mat. To avoid being impaled, Dolph angled his body and was prepared to spin off, slapping the blade to one side. The vinyl had swarmed around his right leg and held on as if it were a forlorn lover. People watching said it was akin to watching fly fishing when the fish is snared and jerked from the water. It was clear that Dolph was headed in one direction. As he shifted and was building up steam, his left leg found no traction as his right foot was bunched up in the vinyl. There was an audible pop that people would remember later. This time, Dolph got a different response from his entourage as they watched him get snapped in the air and thrown to the mats. As students converged, they were soon halted by their instructor, writhing in pain and clutching his right leg as if he'd been molded like clay. I'm all right, Dolph said through grimaced teeth. It was clear that he was not, albeit he was not in mortal danger. Let me catch my breath, he let out in an embarrassed laugh. Oops. The laughter that wafted through the room was cathartic. Okay, I'm going to stop the story right here. Again, that was part 2 of Right of Way. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to purchase my works, I have some things at Smashwords, or email me at al_simon@hotmail.com, and I can send you a complete list of prices and my works. Let me end with a story. This is about the boy that wouldn't talk. A couple had a little boy. He got to be 3-4 years old and he wouldn't speak. Kindergarten went by, first grade, second grade, he still wouldn't talk. They took him to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician did some tests, and he said, well, there's no reason why your boy can't speak. He's got all the capabilities of speech. A few more years go by, second, third grade. Then one Saturday, at the breakfast table, the little boy says, the cereal's cold. The dad says, what? The little boy says, the cereal's cold. The dad says, you can talk. The little boy says, yeah, I can talk. The dad goes ballistic. We took you to doctors. We took you to pediatricians. We took you to specialists. You don't say a word. Kindergarten goes by. First, second grade go by. You don't say anything. You come down to breakfast one morning and you say, the cereal's cold. Why did you decide to speak now? The little boy says, up to now, everything's been fine. Okay, I'm going to close with this. Please get Al out of the ghetto. You load 16 tons. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Thanks for tuning in.